the lights went out. The crowd roared in confusion. And when they came back on, everything had changed. That's how last night's Smackdown ended, and how a new chapter in WWE history began. You could hear it, not just the screaming fans, but the moment of silence in every WWE fan's living room when Roman Reigns stepped through the smoke, not alone, not flanked by Paul Heyman, not by the Usos, but by Jacob Fatu. The same man who blindsided Solo Sikoa just weeks ago. The same man who just turned the Bloodline civil war into a full-on war zone. Let's not sugarcoat it. This wasn't a return. This was an invasion. A takeover. And it was masterfully calculated. No leaks. No teases. No dramatic build-up. Roman walked in like he never left, like the throne had been warm in his absence. The only thing colder than his stare was the line he dropped with clinical precision as he stared Solo Sikoa down, "You're next." That wasn't a threat. That was a judgment. For months, Solo Sikoa looked like he was ascending. When Roman stepped away after WrestleMania XL, Solo didn't just fill a gap, he took the wheel. Brutal, silent, focused. And for a while, it looked like the next chapter of the Bloodline had found its new alpha. Then came Money in the Bank. Fatu appeared. Out of nowhere. Wrecked Solo in the final moments of his match against Seth Rollins. The match was over before anyone could process what had happened. Fans didn't know whether Fatu was attacking for revenge, respect, or chaos. Now we know. It was never betrayal. It was an audition. A message from Roman, delivered with force. "You think I left? I've been watching. I've been judging. I've been planning." Roman didn't just re-enter the arena last night. He reset the board. The segment began subtly. Too subtly. Solo Sikoa had just come off a tense backstage interaction with Paul Heyman, who was looking more like a hostage than an advisor. Sikoa entered the ring, dropped the mic, and began talking about honor, family, and correction. It felt like the beginning of a new reign. Then, blackout. No music. No pyro. Just flickering Titantron static and a deep hum of confusion from the crowd. When the lights returned, Roman Reigns stood tall at the top of the ramp. Beside him, arms crossed, breathing like a predator about to pounce, Jacob Fatu. The air froze. Not a single move was made by the commentary team. No one said a word. Because the sight said everything. You don't need commentary when the tribal chief returns with a war dog at his side. Roman didn't rush the ring. He didn't shout. He simply walked down with all the gravity of a king reclaiming his kingdom. As Solo stood frozen in disbelief, it was Jacob Fatu who made the first move. A flying Samoan drop out of hell. Jeff Cobb, down. Out cold. Fatu's speed was terrifying. His power, undeniable. Cobb, one of the most dangerous men in WWE, got folded like a paper chair in less than 10 seconds. Roman didn't flinch. He watched it all, then stepped into the ring with that trademark slow, stalking gait. Took the mic, locked eyes with Solo. And said the line that redefined the Bloodline arc forever: "This isn't your Bloodline anymore." Until now, this was an ideological struggle: who leads, who inherits, who belongs. There were questions about legacy, trust, and betrayal. But after last night? Those questions are over. Roman gave the answer. And Jacob Fatu gave the consequences. We're no longer looking at a family feud. We're witnessing a full-out tribal war, with allegiances shattered, roles reversed, and power back in the hands of the man who started it all. The Bloodline isn't just a faction. It's an empire. And Roman Reigns didn't just come back to sit on a throne. He came back to burn everything that dared rise in his place. The biggest twist? This wasn't reactive. This wasn't Roman coming back because Solo failed. This was the plan. Fatu's attack at Money in the Bank wasn't a swerve. It was step one. He was never out for himself. He was always answering to Roman. The timing, the placement, the attack, all synchronized. This was Roman pulling strings backstage like a mob boss. Solo never saw it coming. Because he still believed Roman might trust him. He thought power was passed. He thought the torch had been handed. But in the bloodline, power is never handed down. It's taken. Or it's earned. And Solo? He failed the test. Let's talk about fan reaction for a second. Twitter/X, Reddit, and YouTube lit up within minutes. The trending hashtags tell you everything. Clips of Fatu's attack have already passed 3 million views. Fan theories are spreading like wildfire. Some think Heyman is defecting. Others think Roman's return will be short-lived before a final SummerSlam clash. Some believe Jey Uso is being groomed as a double agent. But one thing is universally agreed: this is the most unpredictable arc the Bloodline has ever entered. WWE doesn't always hit home runs with faction storylines, but with the Bloodline? They've gone cinematic. And now, the stakes are bigger than ever. Roman returning during an emotionally charged solo speech wasn't coincidence. It was statement art. It was poetry written in chaos. It was Roman declaring that loyalty without fear is meaningless, and that betrayal without permission is unforgivable. He didn't hit Solo. He didn't scream. He didn't need to. That silence said everything. And that final phrase? "You're next." It wasn't just about Solo. It was a warning to everyone who ever thought Roman was gone for good. This wasn't a nostalgic pop. This wasn't a send-off or a ceremonial return. This was a statement. One of the biggest in modern WWE history. On last night's Smackdown, the arena shook, not from pyro, not from a match result, but from presence. Roman Reigns walked through the curtain with a different energy. He wasn't carrying the weight of the championship anymore. He wasn't holding court with Paul Heyman whispering in his ear. He returned with Jacob Fatu beside him. Stoic. Deadly. Loyal. The tribal chief had been gone for months. Rumors swirled. Injury. Burnout. Backstage politics. But Roman never made a public statement. No Twitter posts. No behind-the-scenes photos. Just silence. Until now. His re-entry into the Bloodline storyline wasn't just timed, it was orchestrated. And it couldn't have come at a more volatile moment. Smackdown was already boiling over. Solo Sikoa was trying to stabilize a fractured version of the Bloodline. Jeff Cobb had aligned himself as muscle, trying to reinforce the new regime. Paul Heyman looked like a man walking a tightrope with no net. The power vacuum left by Roman's departure was visible every week. There were moments Solo looked ready. And then there were moments, like Money in the Bank, where the foundation cracked. That's when Jacob Fatu entered the picture. A feared enforcer in every promotion he's ever touched, Fatu brings chaos with him. When he ambushed Solo during his match with Seth Rollins, it stunned the WWE universe. The commentary team didn't know how to spin it. Even Michael Cole was lost for words. But after last night, it's clear, that wasn't a one-off. It was a move approved and ordered by Roman Reigns himself. The moment the lights cut out and the crowd began to stir, no one knew what was coming. There was no signature Roman theme. No cinematic entrance. Just darkness. And when the light returned, Roman stood at the top of the ramp. His stare said everything. He didn't walk with urgency. He didn't look to the fans for validation. He stared straight into the ring where Solo stood, and next to him was Jacob Fatu, silent, focused, controlled. There was no speech to start. No preamble. No warning. Fatu launched like a missile toward Jeff Cobb and left him unconscious in the middle of the ring. Solo didn't even get the chance to react. Roman stepped into the ring and finally broke his silence with 6 cold words. "You thought you could lead my family?" The crowd erupted. Shock mixed with adrenaline. People stood, phones out, faces frozen. It wasn't the words, it was the delivery. Controlled fury. Like a king addressing a traitor. Then came the second line. The one that hit harder than any punch. You thought you could replace me? That was the reality check. The moment it became undeniable that Roman never relinquished control. He simply watched from the shadows as his cousin fumbled with leadership. And just like that, in the span of less than 5 minutes, Roman Reigns didn't just return. He took the throne back. This isn't just about Roman versus Solo. This is about ownership. Identity. Legacy. The Bloodline brand was built on loyalty and hierarchy. Roman made that hierarchy clear again. There is one head of the table. One tribal chief. And if anyone wants to sit in that seat, they'll have to take it from him. Paul Heyman's reaction was caught on camera moments after the show ended. He was pacing, cell phone in hand, mouth covered in panic. This wasn't the calm, manipulative Wiseman we're used to. This was a man watching the ground disappear beneath him. Whether Heyman knew or not, he was clearly out of the loop. And that alone is a major shift in the dynamic. WWE's commentary team tried to keep up, but even Corey Graves stumbled. The production team didn't cut to commercial. The camera stayed tight on Roman's face, on Solo's jaw clenching, and on Fatu circling the ring like a shark. This was raw tension that didn't need sound effects or pre-written lines. This kind of moment doesn't happen often. WWE's long-form storytelling often gets criticized for stalling or overcomplicating things. But when it lands, it hits with force. This was one of those moments. The kind of moment people will reference in years to come as a turning point. Not just for the Bloodline. For WWE. Because this opens the door to an entirely new era of storytelling. Factions have formed. Loyalties are being tested. Jeff Cobb may be out with an injury. Solo has to regroup, and fast. Roman has momentum, but also enemies. And Jacob Fatu has just shown that he might be the most dangerous force in WWE today, not because of what he did, but because of who he listens to. The Tribal Chief's return has shifted everything. Matches will be affected. The title picture just got blurred. And for anyone holding the Money in the Bank briefcase, Roman's return is a variable that wasn't in their playbook. Reigns is no longer a champion fighting to keep his position. He's a warlord reclaiming his house. And he brought an assassin with him. Whether you cheer him or boo him, the message is clear. Roman Reigns is back. And he's not asking for the spotlight. He's taking it. To understand how everything fell apart for Solo Sikoa, and how Roman Reigns flipped the chessboard on live television, we have to rewind. Not to last night. Not to the return. We have to go back to the moment this entire war was set into motion. The moment Jacob Fatu turned on Solo Sikoa at Money in the Bank. That wasn't just a betrayal. That was a trigger. Until then, Solo was riding momentum. He was filling Roman's absence with cold efficiency. He didn't have his cousin's gift for the microphone, but he had presence. He had control. And he had Paul Heyman, at least on the surface. Money in the Bank was supposed to be a cementing moment. Solo versus Seth Rollins. The match was about legacy and legitimacy. If Solo had pulled off that win, he wouldn't just be seen as the new tribal leader, he would have proof. Gold. Validation. But none of that happened. Because in the final minutes, as Solo prepared to hit the Samoan spike and possibly close the match, Jacob Fatu appeared out of nowhere. The crowd went nuclear. Fatu had never appeared on WWE programming before. He wasn't signed publicly. There had been rumors, whispers, maybe 1 or 2 Easter eggs, but nothing concrete. So when his music hit, it was chaos. He didn't hesitate. He hit the ring with the fury of a man on a mission. He laid into Solo with no hesitation. A super kick to the jaw. A pop-up Samoan drop. The kind of hit that made the ring shake. And then he left. No posing. No signals. No mic. Just destruction. Rollins, ever the opportunist, cashed in on the moment. Curb stomp. Pinfall. Over. The commentary team called it betrayal. Why, Fatu, why? Tweets dominated timelines for the next 72 hours. WWE's YouTube channel put out a clip titled Jacob Fatu's shocking debut and attack on Solo Sikoa. But here's the part that got missed: Fatu didn't touch Rollins. Not once. He didn't even look at him. His focus was singular. Surgical. Solo was the target. Nothing else. And that's where the first real clue was buried. This wasn't a debut attack to make a name for himself. This wasn't Fatu looking for attention. This was an execution. A job. A task. And that's what makes it more terrifying in retrospect, because that means Fatu was already operating under someone's command. At the time, fans debated every possibility. Was Fatu aligned with Paul Heyman? Did someone from Raw hire him? Was this part of a bigger invasion storyline? No one thought to ask the real question: what if this wasn't the beginning of something new? What if this was the continuation of something that had been in motion for months? Roman Reigns had disappeared from television after WrestleMania. There were no farewell promos. No dramatic backstage exits. Just silence. And silence from Roman Reigns is never meaningless. It's loaded. Weaponized. Strategic. So what if he never left the game? What if he was just reloading? Fatu's appearance started to make more sense as time passed. Certain interviews resurfaced. Fatu's training history. His bloodline ties. Quiet statements made by the Inoue family. Jacob Fatu wasn't just a powerhouse from the Indies. He was a Reigns ally from day one. Some fans caught it immediately. Fatu's not going rogue. He's following orders. The Reddit threads laid it out clearly. If Roman wanted to send a message without being seen, Jacob Fatu was the perfect vessel. Unpredictable. Fearless. Loyal. And the target? Solo Sikoa, the very cousin who had been positioning himself as Roman's heir. That night, Solo didn't just lose a match. He lost his momentum. His control. His sense of safety. He had been blindsided by someone he assumed would be on his side. And he couldn't make sense of it. Neither could Jeff Cobb, who stepped in to try to restore order in the weeks that followed. But there were signs Solo ignored. Paul Heyman began to act erratically. Not the composed, scheming Wiseman of old, but a nervous wreck. He started arriving late to segments. He gave half-answers in interviews. When asked directly about Jacob Fatu, he refused to comment. There was one moment during a backstage promo that stands out in hindsight. Solo asked Heyman, "Did you know he was coming?" Heyman hesitated. Not long, just a beat, but long enough for anyone watching closely to catch it. He didn't say no. He said, "That wasn't part of our plan." And the way he said "our" sounded more like a trap than reassurance. That subtle tension began to bubble. Fatu didn't reappear for weeks, but his shadow loomed. Meanwhile, Solo tried to steady the bloodline ship. He cut promos about honor. He talked about restoring legacy. He tried to play the tribal chief role, but something felt off. Like a man reciting lines instead of writing them. And that's what Roman saw. That's what he had to see. To Roman, Solo had failed the test. Not because he lost to Rollins, but because he reacted like a victim afterward. The tribal chief doesn't ask why. He responds with fire. When Fatu attacked at Money in the Bank, that was Roman's first chess move. Testing Solo's readiness. His instinct. His toughness. And Solo didn't respond with vengeance. He responded with confusion. In the eyes of Roman Reigns, that alone was disqualifying. Which brings us back to last night. Fatu returning wasn't a twist. It was the payoff. The reveal that everything since Money in the Bank had been Roman's game. That betrayal wasn't betrayal at all. It was a loyalty test, just not the one Solo thought he was taking. This is storytelling at its most ruthless. Because the moment you realize Fatu was never acting alone, everything about the last few weeks reframes itself. Fatu didn't fail Solo. Solo failed Roman. And the price for that failure has just been delivered. The brilliance of it lies in its simplicity. Roman let Solo rise, let him build confidence, let him believe he was steering the ship, just to gut him at the peak of his own self-assurance. Jacob Fatu played the double-blind role to perfection. And what makes it hurt even more is that Solo probably would have done the same thing if the roles were reversed. There's no room for shared leadership in the bloodline. There's no democracy. Roman Reigns built this family brand on dominance, fear, and hierarchy. You're either behind him or you're beneath him. Jacob Fatu understood that. And Solo forgot it. Now the board is clear. Roman has made his move. Fatu is his knight, his enforcer, his proof of control. And Solo? Solo's not just a failed leader. He's the next target. This was never random. If you're still thinking Roman Reigns returned out of instinct, desperation, or because Solo Sikoa was messing things up, you've missed the point entirely. This wasn't a course correction. This was a long game. Roman didn't just come back because things spiraled, he came back because he let them spiral. Every broken alliance. Every betrayal. Every punch. Every stare. None of it was chaos. It was precision. Roman Reigns didn't return. He revealed the next phase of his plan. Let's go back to the night he stepped away after WrestleMania. Everyone thought it was a sabbatical. He'd held the title for over 3 years. Defended it against everyone. Unified brands. Main event multiple WrestleManias. People figured he needed rest. Maybe he'd come back in a few months to shake things up. But from the beginning, Roman treated this like a campaign. Not a break. A power maneuver. He didn't lose the title. He didn't step down from the bloodline. He withdrew. That's a major difference. He took his name out of the picture, not his influence. Roman created a vacuum. Solo Sikoa moved to fill it. He looked like a natural successor. Quiet. Dangerous. Uncompromising. But that's what made him easy to test. He wasn't fully seasoned. He hadn't been battle-forged the way Roman had. And Roman knew it. The second he saw Solo trying to emulate his presence without understanding the cost, the trap was set. Phase 1 of Roman's plan, fake absence. In WWE, absence is usually a loss of relevance. Roman turned it into power. By stepping back and letting Solo lead, he invited temptation. He made Solo think leadership was within reach. That Roman's crown was something you could just inherit. It's not. Roman doesn't pass the torch. He holds it hostage. He gave Solo just enough leash to hang himself. Then came phase 2, deception. Enter Jacob Fatu. Fatu isn't just some free agent Roman scooped up. This is a generational weapon. A walking warhead. For years, Fatu was one of the most dominant forces outside WWE. He didn't need a mic. He didn't need storylines. His matches were chaos. His reputation spread without marketing. Roman saw that and didn't just see potential. He saw leverage. A new right hand. One that didn't question orders. One that didn't need grooming. One that would follow, destroy, and vanish, until it was time to strike again. That's why Fatu debuted the way he did. Not with a promo. Not with a brand announcement. With violence. Nothing else. Just him, a ring, and Solo Sikoa's body crumpled at his feet. Phase 3, Reveal. Roman didn't rush this. He didn't show up at Money in the Bank. He didn't cut a promo the next week. He let speculation swirl. Fans wondered, was this Fatu acting on his own? Was Solo the weak link? Was Heyman orchestrating a coup? That confusion was part of the strategy. Because while the WWE Universe debated theories, Roman was watching the responses. From Solo. From Heyman. From Jay. He was analyzing weaknesses. Charting emotional reactions. Measuring distance. Testing lines of loyalty. And the results confirmed what Roman suspected: Solo Sikoa wasn't built to lead. He was built to follow. And followers who mistake themselves for leaders become liabilities. So Roman did what any calculating leader would do. He let Solo run the kingdom long enough to start believing it was his. Then he returned to burn it down. Every move Roman made last night felt rehearsed. Not just practiced, pre-planned. His posture. His pacing. The mic drop line, "You thought you could lead my family?" That wasn't improvisation. That was a rehearsed execution. Roman didn't speak much. He didn't need to. Everything he needed said had already been said, through Fatu. Through the chaos. Through Solo's stunned silence. Let's look at the psychology here. Roman Reigns isn't just playing a character. He's playing an archetype. The fallen king. The ruthless patriarch. The dictator who disappears, only to return stronger. The kind of leader who doesn't demand loyalty, he tests it. He tempts you to abandon him, then punishes you for even considering it. Solo Sikoa thought this was succession. Roman treated it like rebellion. This isn't just storytelling. This is myth-building. Roman's master plan wasn't to wrestle his way back to the top. He knew that would be too simple. Too expected. What he wanted was control without effort. Power without presence. And he got it. He made everyone play their part without even knowing they were part of his script. Let's revisit the main elements of the plan. Step 1, vanish without context. Let people think you're wounded. That creates sympathy and distance. Step 2, allow someone to fill your void. Solo stepped in, not realizing he was walking into a trap. Step 3, quietly recruit a weapon. Fatu wasn't brought in to make a splash. He was embedded into the system as a timed explosion. Step 4, sabotage the air. Let Solo climb. Let him speak about family. Let him taste leadership. Then take everything from him in one moment. Step 5, re-enter the picture at maximum impact. Roman didn't return during a promo. He came back at the exact moment Solo tried to claim the family's moral high ground. Step 6, install a new order. Fatu becomes the enforcer. Roman reclaims the throne. Heyman is either back in line or out of the game. And Solo? He's now the hunted. This kind of plan takes months of discipline. Of silence. Of surveillance. And Roman played it like a general returning from war to find his lieutenant wearing his uniform. Here's what makes this more than just a wrestling storyline. Roman Reigns didn't just return for a feud. He returned with a psychological message to everyone watching: I never left. You just forgot who gave you permission to speak. Now let's talk about what comes next. Because if this was all part of a plan, then there's a phase 6, and that's consolidation. Roman doesn't just want to humiliate Solo. He wants to erase the idea that anyone else could lead the bloodline. That means future steps are coming. Jacob Fatu will likely begin taking out threats systematically. Jey Uso. Jeff Cobb. Even Seth Rollins if the MITB briefcase becomes relevant. Roman will pull strings from above, using Fatu the way a crime boss uses a hitman: visible, dangerous, and always on the move. Meanwhile, Paul Heyman's loyalty will be questioned. Publicly. Roman will make him sweat. And if Heyman even hints at defection? Expect consequences. Roman's endgame is simple: regain complete, uncontested control of the bloodline. Not through matches. Not through titles. Through fear. Through strategy. Through psychological warfare. The scariest part? He's already halfway there. He broke Solo without touching him. That's the mark of a true tactician. Jacob Fatu wasn't the twist. He was the tool. And Roman Reigns didn't return to compete. He returned to conquer. The moment the arena lights went out, the entire tone of Smackdown changed. It wasn't a production glitch. It wasn't a tease for a new debut. It was the calm before impact. And what followed wasn't just a return, it was a full-scale takeover. Smackdown had been building tension all night. Solo Sikoa was scheduled to address the WWE Universe. Not just with a promo. With a mission statement. This was supposed to be his tribal chief moment, the opportunity to show that his reign wasn't built on inheritance, it was built on grit. On pain. On survival. The segment was promoted throughout the night. Solo speaks. 3 simple words that carried the weight of a crumbling dynasty. When Solo finally stepped into the ring, there was no spectacle. No entrance video. No pyro. Just a low, moody entrance. His face was tight. Jaw clenched. You could tell from the first few seconds, this wasn't the same man we saw after Money in the Bank. This was someone unraveling. The microphone felt heavy in his hands. He began speaking not as a leader, but as someone trying to convince himself that he still had control. He talked about betrayal. About Jeff Cobb stepping up. About holding things together while the family fractured around him. About Roman's silence. About trust. His voice cracked on the word family. And then, everything went black. The production crew didn't cut to commercial. The commentary team didn't speak. The audience noise didn't fade, it got louder. People screamed, some thinking this was a technical error, others instinctively knowing something big was coming. The screen glitched. Brief static. A distorted tribal symbol flashed for a millisecond on the big screen. Then silence. When the lights returned, 2 figures stood at the top of the ramp. Roman Reigns. Jacob Fatu. The crowd reaction was instant and split. Screams. Boos. Chants. And a roar that didn't stop. No music played. Roman didn't raise his arms. He just stood there, flanked by Fatu, staring into the ring at Solo Sikoa. The camera zoomed in on Solo's eyes. And for the first time since Roman's departure, he looked shaken. Not angry. Not vengeful. Shaken. He wasn't expecting this. Not like this. Roman and Fatu began to walk. Slow. Controlled. Every step was deliberate. Like sharks gliding toward blood in the water. No sprint. No hype. Just presence. Cobb stepped forward, instinctively putting himself between Solo and the oncoming threat. It was a noble move, but ultimately pointless. Jacob Fatu exploded. Without a word, without a cue, Fatu launched into the ring with velocity that defied his size. The rope snapped. The crowd gasped. And Cobb didn't even have a second to react before he was lifted into the air and slammed into the mat with a Samoan drop that echoed through the arena. Cobb's body folded. The ref outside the ring screamed for help. Ringside staff moved like they didn't know whether to jump in or run. Solo didn't move. Not out of fear, but shock. Disbelief. Because Fatu wasn't attacking randomly. He was targeting the man who had tried to support Solo. The message was clear: your allies mean nothing. Roman finally entered the ring. No microphone in hand. He didn't need one. He walked past Fatu. Past Cobb's crumpled body. And stood face to face with Solo. The tension in the air was suffocating. They didn't speak for 10 seconds. Just stared. Solo's chest rose with every breath, trying to hide the fact that he was unraveling. Roman? Completely still. Like stone. Then Roman finally took the mic from the timekeeper's area. He didn't shout. He whispered. You thought you could lead my family? The crowd booed and cheered simultaneously. Duality. Chaos. Exactly the reaction Roman commands. You thought you could replace me? Solo clenched his fists. But he didn't swing. That told you everything you needed to know. Fatu stood behind him, watching for any twitch. And then Roman leaned in, dropped the final line of the night, and reset the entire Bloodline war. You're next. No punch. No superkick. No spear. Just 3 words. Delivered like a verdict. Roman handed the mic off. Walked out of the ring. Fatu followed. Solo didn't chase. He just stood there. Alone. With Cobb still unconscious next to him. That silence was louder than any chant. The show ended with the camera locked on Solo's face. No music played. Just the echo of what had just happened. The energy in the arena didn't drop even as the credits rolled. Fans stayed standing. Phones still recording. No one was ready to move. It wasn't over. It had only just begun. This wasn't an ambush. It was a reclamation. Roman didn't return to compete. He returned to erase doubt. To remind everyone that his rule is not up for discussion. Fatu wasn't there to make a name for himself. He already had one. He was there to enforce. This was the moment where everything shifted. Not through promos. Not through match outcomes. But through raw, visual domination. Through timing. Through tension. Through fear. The Bloodline civil war officially escalated the second the lights came back on. Roman Reigns didn't need a 20-minute promo. He didn't need fireworks, catchphrases, or a new t-shirt slogan. All he needed were 3 lines. 3 sentences delivered with the calm of a man who knew he never lost control, because he never gave it up in the first place. The message wasn't in volume. It was in precision. You thought you could lead my family? You thought you could replace me? You're next. That was it. No theatrics. No monologue. Just surgical language that carved Solo Sikoa down to size in front of the entire WWE universe. Roman didn't raise his voice because he didn't need to. Leaders don't scream when they know the army still marches to their command. Every word Roman spoke was part of a psychological takedown. Let's break it down. You thought you could lead my family? That wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Roman framed Solo's recent actions not as a stepping up, but as a betrayal. In one sentence, he reframed everything Solo has done in Roman's absence as an offense, not a duty. He didn't acknowledge Solo's efforts, his promos, his matches. He saw it all as a challenge. An attempt to take what wasn't offered. It's critical that he used the word my instead of the. He didn't say, the family. He said, my family. That's a distinction of ownership. Roman is reasserting his position not just as a former leader, but as the Bloodline's rightful king. His bloodline. His dynasty. His story. You thought you could replace me? This was where the message turned even more venomous. Because now it wasn't just about leadership, it was about identity. Roman sees himself as the heart of the Bloodline. He didn't build a faction. He built a legacy. When Solo began operating as the de facto leader, he didn't just fill a role. He tried to embody a position that Roman believes cannot be replicated. Roman's use of the word replace isn't about the throne. It's about essence. And that's why it stung so deeply. Solo wasn't trying to disrespect Roman, he was trying to carry on. But to Roman, that's the ultimate disrespect. The idea that someone else could wear the crown, make the calls, deliver the speeches. That wasn't ambition to Roman. That was betrayal. "You're next." This was the hammer. Not shouted. Not barked. Delivered like a whisper in a cold room. It wasn't just a warning. It was a prophecy. And Roman didn't follow it with a punch or a threat. He let the silence do the damage. He let Solo feel it. That's what Roman does better than anyone else in WWE today. He creates gravity. He doesn't try to convince you. He makes you realize. There's a difference. Other superstars call people out. Roman just names them, and the room shifts. "You're next." Not for punishment. For judgment. And here's the brilliance, Roman didn't physically touch Solo. He didn't need to. Jacob Fatu did the damage. Jeff Cobb lay unconscious as a reminder of what happens when you stand in the way. But Solo? Roman didn't swing. He spoke. That's the scariest kind of power, the kind that doesn't need fists to cause damage. Let's talk about crowd reaction. When Roman delivered those lines, the crowd didn't erupt. They froze. The volume dipped. Not because they weren't engaged, but because they were. You could feel the tension tighten across the arena. Thousands of people collectively holding their breath, watching a man's world collapse without a single punch thrown. Solo's reaction was telling. He didn't talk back. He didn't attack. He didn't even flinch. He just stood there, fists clenched, chest heaving, watching everything he'd built unravel with 3 sentences. There was a moment, barely a second long, where Solo's eyes dropped from Roman's face to the mat. That wasn't weakness. That was realization. He understood in that moment that this wasn't a feud. This wasn't a disagreement. This was a sentence being handed down. Roman wasn't angry. He was disappointed. Worse than that, he was prepared. That's what makes him different. Most superstars react in the moment. Roman plans for them. And when the plan is revealed, it's never loud. It's lethal in its simplicity. Now let's consider the implications. This wasn't just about Solo. This message was layered. It was sent to Paul Heyman, who has wavered like a reed in the wind. Jeff Cobb, whose alliance now puts a target on his back. Jey Uso, who's hovering in emotional limbo, unsure which side to choose. Seth Rollins, who holds the briefcase and now knows Roman is back in play. But most of all, the message was to the WWE Universe. To every fan who thought the Bloodline era had ended. To every analyst who predicted a permanent Roman retirement. To every roster member who saw Roman's absence as an opportunity. Roman just reminded them all that he doesn't need to be present to be in power. And now that he is present? It's not just a return. It's a reset. This moment didn't need a title belt to matter. Roman isn't chasing championships. He's reclaiming a legacy. This isn't about gold. It's about hierarchy. Control. Legacy. And Jacob Fatu? He didn't say a word either. He just stood in the background, breathing like a caged animal, eyes locked on Solo like a predator that hadn't eaten in days. That visual, the two of them, Roman calm, Fatu coiled, Solo cornered, that's what the WWE does best when it's in full command of a story. No commentary necessary. No backstory explanation needed. Just character. Conflict. Presence. Roman's words didn't just set the tone for the next chapter. They reminded us why he's the standard. He isn't loud. He's law. Jacob Fatu didn't betray Solo Sikoa. He obeyed Roman Reigns. And that's the twist that changes everything. WWE tried to sell it as a shocking attack. The commentators leaned into the betrayal angle. Social media exploded with terms like traitor, ambush, and double cross. But none of those were accurate. In reality, Jacob Fatu never turned on Solo. Because he was never with him to begin with. He was Roman's all along. The Bloodline civil war wasn't just about family members choosing sides. It was a calculated test of loyalty. And while the entire WWE universe thought Jacob Fatu's appearance at Money in the Bank was a wildcard move, it was part of Roman's long game. Jacob Fatu didn't go rogue. He was activated. This reframes everything that's happened over the past month. When Fatu showed up and cost Solo the match against Seth Rollins, fans thought he was making a name for himself. That he was trying to stake a claim to the spotlight. That he was a threat to both sides. But now we know. Fatu wasn't trying to replace anyone. He was answering a call. And Solo? He wasn't just outmatched. He was outplayed. Let's break down why this matters. Roman Reigns left after WrestleMania without a clear successor. The WWE Universe assumed Solo would take over. He had the demeanor, the mystique, the silence. But those were just surface traits. Roman needed more than that. He needed ruthlessness, precision, and most of all, obedience. Solo Sikoa didn't fail because he was weak. He failed because he believed leadership could be earned by default. Roman doesn't hand out titles. He crafts soldiers. And Jacob Fatu proved he was one. There were signs from the beginning. Fatu never aligned himself publicly with Solo. He didn't speak. He didn't claim territory. He showed up, hit, and disappeared. That's not the behavior of someone trying to build a faction. That's the mark of a hired gun. When Roman returned with Fatu walking behind him like a warhound, it confirmed what many had missed: Fatu was never auditioning. He was fulfilling orders. And the target was Solo Sikoa. Not just physically. Symbolically. Solo wasn't just someone who needed to be taken down. He was someone who needed to be reminded that Roman Reigns still owns the entire system. That every piece on the board, including Solo, moves only when Roman says so. That's why Fatu's loyalty matters. Because it's not just about who throws the hardest punches. It's about who follows without question. And Jacob Fatu? He didn't flinch. Not when he attacked Solo at Money in the Bank. Not when he dropped Jeff Cobb with a Samoan drop. Not when he stood behind Roman, arms crossed, eyes locked, like a predator waiting for the command to strike again. That's not alliance. That's allegiance. And Solo failed to earn it. There's another layer here too. Roman doesn't align himself with just anyone. He's been careful. Methodical. Even Paul Heyman, the wise man, had to work his way into the role. So for Roman to bring Jacob Fatu into the Bloodline at this moment, it's more than a tactical move, it's a cultural decision. Fatu represents something Solo never fully grasped: the ancestral weight of the Bloodline. He doesn't just fight for dominance. He fights with legacy in his veins. This makes him more dangerous than any outsider. Fatu has nothing to prove, and everything to enforce. Solo had his chance to pass Roman's test. To lead with fear and respect. To bring chaos under control. Instead, he leaned into emotion. Into speeches. Into the idea of being the next tribal chief rather than understanding what that title truly means. Roman doesn't care about appearances. He cares about results. And Fatu gave him results. Violent. Clean. Unapologetic. That's how Roman operates. That's what he demands. And Fatu has delivered it every single time without hesitation. That kind of loyalty is rare. And it's lethal. This puts the entire Bloodline landscape into a new perspective. Because now the WWE Universe knows who Roman trusts. Who he considers worthy. And it's not Solo. It's not Jay. It's not even Paul Heyman. It's Jacob Fatu. The silent destroyer. The enforcer who doesn't need words to send a message. The embodiment of loyalty Roman Reigns requires. Solo didn't just lose his match. He lost his place in the family hierarchy. Not because he was betrayed, but because someone else followed the rules better than he did. Now the question isn't, can Solo get revenge? It's, was Solo ever meant to lead? The second the cameras cut backstage after Roman's shocking return, Paul Heyman was already moving. Fast. Anxious. Distracted. He wasn't walking with purpose like he usually does. Heyman was scrambling. On his phone. Muttering. Eyes darting. Hands shaking. This wasn't the Wiseman. This was a man caught completely off guard, trying desperately to understand the power shift he just witnessed. For months, Paul Heyman positioned himself as the link between Roman Reigns and the rest of the Bloodline. Even after Roman's departure post-WrestleMania, Heyman stayed visible. He aligned with Solo Sikoa, albeit nervously. He offered quiet counsel. He stayed in rooms even when he looked like he wanted out. But through it all, one thing was clear: Heyman was buying time. And now he's out of it. Roman Reigns just returned, and he didn't bring Paul Heyman with him. That detail matters a lot. For years, Heyman was the trusted voice of Roman's empire. The architect behind the mic. The spin doctor. The man who guided Roman's title reign with verbal venom and strategic silence. But last night, when Roman walked down the ramp, Heyman wasn't beside him. Jacob Fatu was. That alone told the WWE Universe everything they needed to know. Roman no longer needs Paul Heyman to speak for him. He doesn't need a lawyer. He doesn't need a translator. He has a weapon now. He has clarity. He has Jacob Fatu. So where does that leave Heyman? In crisis. And we saw that play out in real time. Backstage, he was caught whispering into his phone, pacing in circles, even muttering Roman's name like a man trying to wake up from a nightmare. It was a complete breakdown of the calm, calculating strategist we've seen for the past 3 years. What's more telling is who Heyman was trying to call: Seth Rollins. Yes, the same Seth Rollins who holds the Money in the Bank briefcase. The same Rollins who now becomes a wild card in this civil war. That's not a coincidence. That's a panic move. Heyman isn't just worried about Roman's return. He's worried about what happens if Roman reclaims power while he's on the outside looking in. So he's hedging his bets. Reaching out to the competition. Trying to find allies before he's completely isolated. The symbolism here is rich. Heyman, once the ultimate manipulator, now finds himself outmaneuvered. He placed his chips on Solo Sikoa, hoping the youngest enforcer would stabilize the bloodline during Roman's absence. Instead, Solo overreached, Fatu arrived, and Roman came back with a new order already in place. Heyman didn't see it coming. Or worse, he did, and hoped it wouldn't happen this fast. That's the tragedy of Paul Heyman's current position. He's not a traitor. He's not even a villain in this story. He's a man who's been playing both sides, trying to survive in a storm that no longer needs him. And Roman knows it. The real test will come in the next few weeks. Does Heyman try to talk his way back into Roman's favor? Does he double down on Solo and risk the wrath of the tribal chief? Or does he flip the table and align with someone entirely new, someone like Seth Rollins? That possibility is growing louder in fan circles. And not just because of that backstage call. Heyman and Rollins have history. They've clashed. They've respected each other's brilliance. And Rollins is one of the few people on the roster who could outmaneuver Roman if the stars align. If Heyman sees Roman as a threat to his survival, he may finally do what fans have speculated about for years: turn on the head of the table. It's not a guaranteed outcome. But the seeds have been planted. The WWE Universe saw a rare version of Heyman last night. Vulnerable. Panicked. Powerless. The man who once guided Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns through championship dynasties now finds himself completely unarmed. No client. No position. No voice. And if Roman doesn't welcome him back, Heyman might do the only thing he knows how to do: flip the narrative. That would make him dangerous again. But for now, he's cornered. The Wiseman is in survival mode. There's one man stuck right in the middle of this tribal war. One man who's lived on both sides of Roman Reigns' rule. One man who's been a soldier, a rebel, a brother, and a heartbeat of the bloodline. That man is Jey Uso. And now he's got a choice to make. Everything about Jey's story has been built on loyalty and pain. From the moment Roman Reigns began his tribal chief run, Jey was the first to feel its full force. Not just in-ring violence, but emotional submission. Roman didn't just beat Jey, he broke him. Over and over. Until Jay finally bent the knee. That was the original fracture point in the bloodline. Jay didn't align with Roman because he believed in him, he did it because he was crushed into doing so. And once he gave in, he gave everything. He became the right-hand man. The trusted lieutenant. He turned on his own brother Jimmy to keep Roman's empire running. And for a long time it worked. But then something shifted. Jay started finding his voice again. He questioned decisions. He hesitated in beatdowns. And when Jimmy returned and pushed back against Roman, Jay found his backbone. The cracks became visible. The brotherhood became stronger than the hierarchy. And eventually, Jay stood up to Roman and walked away. But walking away didn't free him. It only complicated his role in the Bloodline civil war. Because now, as Roman returns with Jacob Fatu and Solo begins his slow collapse, Jay is stuck in a battlefield with no clear side. Roman broke him. Solo protected him. And now they're on opposite ends of a war he helped start. And to make it worse, Jay just lost his shot at the Intercontinental Championship against Gunther. That loss matters more than people realize. Jay has spent the past year trying to carve out his identity as a singles competitor. He wanted to prove he didn't need Roman. Didn't need the bloodline. That he could thrive on his own. The IC title would have been the symbol of that independence. He came close. But close doesn't count. Now he's titleless. And watching the only family he has tear itself apart again. Here's what makes Jay's position so dangerous: he understands both Roman and Solo better than anyone else. He's taken beatings from both. He's cried over both. He's defended both. And now he may have to fight both. There's a moment looming, maybe not this week, maybe not even this month, but it's coming. The moment when Jay has to pick a side. Does he stand with the man who manipulated and humiliated him for years, but who still commands power like no one else in WWE history? Or does he back his younger cousin, Solo, who's spiraling and isolated, but once risked his own status to protect Jay during the original Bloodline implosion? There's no clean choice. Just consequences. And Jay knows that. You can see it in his face every time the camera finds him in the locker room. He's not smiling. He's not talking. He's watching. Listening. Calculating. He's not the same man who walked away from Roman months ago. He's older now. Sharper. Hardened by betrayal and redemption. And that's exactly why both Roman and Solo are watching him closely. Roman sees Jay as unfinished business. Someone who disobeyed but hasn't yet been punished. He's never truly forgiven Jay for walking away, for standing up, for weakening the bloodline's aura of obedience. If Roman gets the chance, he won't just beat Jay, he'll try to erase him. Solo, on the other hand, sees Jay as his last possible ally. Cobb is out. Heyman is cracking. Fatu is the enemy. Jay is the only one who still has weight in this war, and Solo knows it. If Jay stands by him, Solo has a shot at reclaiming the bloodline from the inside. If Jay doesn't, he's finished. There's a third option too. Jay doesn't choose either side. He burns the whole thing down. There's precedent for that. He's done it before, walked away from both, forged his own path, refused to kneel. If Jay chooses himself again, it could shift the entire narrative. The bloodline might not fracture, it might collapse completely. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit: Jey Uso was the soul of the bloodline. Roman was the brain. Solo, the muscle. But Jey was the heart. The glue. The one who connected all the pieces. The one who gave emotional weight to the story. Without him, it's just war. And if he decides to act, that war becomes personal. Jey doesn't need a belt. He doesn't need to cut a promo. He just needs to show up at the right time and hit the right person, and the entire balance shifts. So now everyone's waiting. Will Jey save Solo? Will he take revenge on Roman? Or will he watch it all burn and walk away again? One thing's certain, when Jey Uso makes his choice, it won't be quiet.